Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I am here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones, and we were supposed to do some sort of podcast to talk about what happened in the Heat game, and then kaboom, uh, the bomb dropped that the Hawks dismissed Landry Fields as general manager. Um, we could talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm sure everything is sort of related in one way or another. But maybe start with your reactions, I guess, to the Landry Fields news.
Well, I guess my first reaction was, it was pretty surprising in that, there wasn't any, there wasn't any rumors or anything that Fields' job was at risk. But um, it's not like it can't be explained. And I think my biggest takeaway from the Fields era is that one, he's really good at PR. Like I think in general, selling his vision both to the fans and to his individual players and to the team. Like I think he did a great job doing that. However, there was a very real lack of experience within this front office in general, and like to me, Landry probably never should have been. He never should have been hired as the top executive in the first place. Like his resume just wasn't of the caliber of somebody you want to be your head, your quote unquote head guy within your organization. Combined with like, I think Wrestler wants a more experienced hand because this offseason is very like there's a lot of real decisions this team has to make that probably you're gonna want somebody with a bit more gravitas. And I'll go a little bit further, but like long the short of it is I just don't think Fields had any as much power as people think as a top executive. Like I don't think even though he was quote unquote the head decision maker, I don't think like to me, I don't think Fields could go to Quinn and be like, "Hey, play this guy over this guy," or like stop, doing like I don't think he had the political cachet to do that. I think one thing I remember is when the Hawks were trying to trade for Pascal Siakam last year, a big talking point was that Quinn Snyder didn't want to put Kobe Buffkin in the trade. Respect to Quinn Snyder, but he should have no say on whether a rookie, unproven, is going to be included in a trade for a real all-star caliber player. Like he should not have the political cachet to tell the front office what they can and cannot do with player personnel. Like Quinn is just not that type of like he has not shown to me an ability to evaluate talent to that degree to where you can justify him making that type of decision. And I don't think it was just exclusive to Kobe Buffkin. I think there were other decisions maybe the Hawks made where the coach came to mind first instead of the overall talent. And so that's why I'm coming back to like they got to get a stronger voice in the room in the front office.
Yeah, that's kind of hits on a point that I wanted to make, which was that I sort of suspect that Landry would still be around if he was not the top guy, because they've gradually accumulated more and more voices since he started. They started with Kyle Korver. They brought on Chris Grant, who was ostensibly one of his guys, because I think they had worked together in San Antonio. And the now current GM Onsi Saleh from Golden State. So like they brought all these voices in. And of course, Quinn too. They hired Quinn as a head coach, and I'm sure he got substantial pull and voice when he was hired as head coach. So you put all those voices in the room together, and it seemed like they had done a reasonable job of collaboration. It seemed like in a lot of aspects they were on the same page. I don't think that anybody would have objected to what Landry Fields had done since the collaboration. But if there is a source of conflict, then the person who is going to go is going to be the one who is at the top. If there are equal voices in the room and powerful voices below you, then you can't really keep him on as a voice once he's been to the top. So it gets a little bit tricky in that regard. So if you want to do that kind of a reset, it kind of has to be him. So it's kind of a tricky spot. Glenn, what did you think?
I mean, it surprised me a little bit when you take a step back. Um, I think what Landry has done reasonably well, Landry and the team has done reasonably. Most front office these days are really working in collaboration. The head coach is going to have voice, right? That's just how it works these days. You're not going to get an experienced head coach to come work for you if they're going to be completely shut out of those conversations. We might have different views on how much voice the coach should have in a situation like that. But I thought what Landry did reasonably well after Travis left was make incremental moves that kind of put them incrementally in a direction to give a little bit more roster flexibility, a little bit more financial flexibility. But what makes sense to me is that incremental moves are not going to get them where they need to go from here. It takes some significant moves, right? And to Tyler's point, you can't really look back at any history where Landry's been someone who's been able to, you know, make a 3 or 4 team trade come together if that's what it takes, or So I feel like this is just me guessing, but also just kind of reading the tea leaves, if you will, is that they want someone who has experience shepherding big changes and significant moves, and that's different than I think what Landry offers. And from that standpoint, I think it makes some sense.
And just to add on this a little bit, because when it happened, I was texting Brad to be like, "Hey, what happened here?" And Brad doesn't know yet either, but he might find out eventually. But like, I think the thing we took away from it was that, like, if you don't think Landry Fields is the guy to shepherd your team, then you might as well make the decision to let him go. Like, if you feel like you can upgrade from the position, which who knows? I don't know who's in the running. I don't know what direction Russell wants to go to. But if you feel like you can't do that, Landry hadn't shown enough to suggest that, oh, he has to stay on because he has this great plan. Like, there was some small stuff that the Hawks had not been able to do, during even Landry's run that incrementally could have improved the team. I remember in free agency they couldn't sign Trey Jones. They couldn't sell Trey Jones on being Trey Young's backup,
Right.
making more money than the minimum. That can't happen to me. Like, respected, like Trey Jones ended up starting for Suns. I don't know, in that train wreck. Like, I don't know how you can't sell a player on your vision, be like, hey, we're gonna be decent. You're gonna play a lot. Like, we only have so many ball handlers. Like, we're gonna need some experience. They couldn't sell Trey Jones. The DeJounte Murray trade was a little wonky, and they ended up taking more salary than they had to, which meant Cody Zeller was on the roster. There were ways the Hawks and the Pelicans could have maneuvered to save money if they did their transaction in a certain way, and that didn't happen. That ended up costing the Hawks a roster spot, which ended up hurting them early in the season when they had all the injuries and they couldn't find a replacement because they were stuck with Mason Plumlee on the roster.
Cody Zeller.
Yeah, Cody Zeller. I'm sorry. Whatever.
You
I get
associated it with two different Plumleys first.
Yeah, I don't know why I made that mistake. I love Tyler Zeller, North Carolina legend, but like,
They're all the same player, anyways. We could throw
yeah,
any,
they are, they
and it
are.
works.
But like my big, and then like the biggest one to me is you trade John Collins, but you never find a replacement for him, in the sense that you never find a real backup for Jalen Johnson until this trade deadline, when unfortunately Jalen was hurt. But like, until then, the Hawks were throwing out lineups. Like, Quinn didn't have the option of going to a, like, I don't know, insert Houston Rockets backup forward here. You know, there were forwards available that wouldn't have cost that much. That the Hawks just like kind of just were like, whatever, it's fine, quote unquote, the season doesn't matter. We don't need to improve the roster. Like there were things the Hawks could have done to improve the roster, implemented small moves that would have helped the team. Now the overall vision for the Hawks was fine, but it just goes to my point where it's like Landry wasn't making enough small moves that says that he's a true visionary. Where I think he did his job well, and what they needed to do was just to retool and rebuild a little bit and try to get the Hawks into a proper direction where they've been directionless these last couple of years. But visionary, like I see other organizations in the Hawks position would be funneling through guys to figure out who can work and who can't. Like teams will go through like multiple 13th, 14th, 15th man to figure out like if that guy can be my ninth man, if he can be my 10th man for the minimum. Like that's just not something the Hawks were doing. And to me, that just felt like Landry was like, I'm okay with us being this good when I to me I'm like if Mo Gay's going to have this level of impact as a backup power, as a power forward, you could have found a better player than Mo Gay if you didn't trust him. Like there was a veteran available somewhere that could have did what Mo Gay did for the last part of the season. That would have helped the Hawks immensely when Jalen Johnson was healthy. And I think for 2 years this organization's been a little too passive in like trying to figure out who can back up Jalen Johnson at the power forward because what they were doing until the trade deadline was not working. It was getting them killed every night, even before all the injuries.
Yeah. I sort of wonder if there was something. I know we disagreed about what we thought about the trade deadline on the last podcast where we had Tyler with us. I sort of wonder if like there was something at the trade deadline that Tony didn't like, just because
He
you're trying to do a lot of things. Like you're trying to trade Hunter, you're trying to trade Bogey. The way that they shut Clint Capella down and then went to Larry Nance until Larry Nance got hurt, that suggested to me that they were very much trying to trade Clint Capella. So you've got kind of battles on three different fronts. And when you've got sort of this collaborative front office, you wonder if like maybe different executives were working on different deals here, and that maybe somebody was working on the Hunter deal and somebody was working on the Bogey deal, somebody was working on a Capella deal, and if one of those three was something that ownership didn't approve of, maybe they're looking at one of those deals and saying, that really did not work. Either we gave up too much value, or the player we brought in wasn't what we should have gotten. Like I just feel like
there,
there was probably something in there, and it's going to be hard.
Kevin, you're absolutely right. The
Oh, okay.
deal
No, but
was
no,
the
but I'm just
no
saying the hard part is like it might be a while before we find
no
out which one of those deals was the one that was in
Kevin.
disfavor.
The problem was that they couldn't make the trade work for Brandon Ingram. Like, how do you miss out on Brandon Ingram? I understand the Raptors ended up getting him. They ended up throwing a first round pick. But
Now you
like,
look at what the Raptors paid, and the Hawks were good to stay out of that one.
but if I'm the owner, all right, I'm Tony Russell. I want to improve the team so that we can compete at the highest levels. Trading Hunter and Bogey for expiring contracts and deals that give me cap flexibility, that's fine. If you can guarantee me in the offseason, you're going to get a Zion Williamson, a Kevin Durant, a Paul George, or, I'm not saying to go after these guys, but I'm saying, like, if you can guarantee me we're doing that, then yeah, sure. I don't know if Landry Fields, considering he missed on the Siakam and he missed on Ingram, that you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to trust him to make a trade for Zion Williamson. I, no,
I
no,
know.
like Ingram was the guy. I understand the Raptors overpaid. That's fine. They How do you not get a player who wants to win like Brandon? Like, every player wants to win. They would have paid Brandon Ingram real money. You can't convince Brandon Ingram to be like, yo, look, we're trying to win at the highest levels, and we think you can be the guy next to Trey to take pressure off of Trey Young. That is the biggest issue with the Hawks right now. Glenn, Kevin, we saw it in the playing back-to-back games. Trey has to do everything on the offensive end, or the Hawks aren't going to get a good shot at all. And like that is too much for one player to handle. Brandon Ingram would have helped. Pascal Siakam would have helped. And we like what Pascal Siakam ended up going for from the Pacers, like to the Pacers, like the Hawks could have matched that deal. They could have made that deal work. But because you have inexperience, like you have other organizations trying to take advantage of you too often because they don't respect Landry Fields' acumen or they don't respect how this organization is ran, that hurts you. And like full stop. I'm like, they said they were trying to get Kevin Durant's deal done, but I didn't hear any offers. I didn't hear any rumors. I heard Miami was in on him. I heard the Grizzlies. I heard all these teams, but not the Hawks. And like, if I'm wrestler, I'm like, we should be in those conversations. We need to be in those talks because that's the only way we're going to compete at the highest levels. We can be cute all we want about developing the young guys, all that good stuff. That's nice. If Trey Young is on this team and we expect Trey Young to be on this team for the next 5 or 10 years, then we got to get another guy. We got to get another guy with real size that can play next to Trey Young and take pressure off Trey. Everything else is nonsense. Like everything else is like nice window dressing. Like I love a lot what the Hawks did this year, but like at the end of the day, if we're trying to win playoff series and we're trying to win a title, you need another guy. And Landry Fields missed out on two guys who they should have been in the catbird seat for. They should have been in the head of the table for Siakam and Ingram. That they missed out on them is a poor reflection on Fields' ability to negotiate trades with other organizations. And I think that's for me was Quinn's like, I got to get somebody who's a better talker between teams. Like that's just the reality. And like I can't have Fields be my guy if we're not going to get if we have the assets to get deals done and they're not getting done and we're willing to like I'm pretty sure the Hawks were willing to pay Ingram real money. I don't think they're going to pay him what the Raptors did, but there's no way you can't tell me they can't go up to Ingram like, yo, you play with Trey Young, you're going to be a guaranteed all-star. Like you're going to get all the numbers you want. You're going to get he's going to feed you points. Like you can't convince Brandon Ingram instead of going to the Hawks, you going to a dead end Raptors team. Like Ingram has a choice here. He doesn't have to resign with the Raptors. There are things you can do as a executive, maybe off the books a little bit, but like that's how deals get done in the NBA. And so like that's where I'm like, hey, I'm not okay with just being playing fodder. I want to win a title. And like if Trey again, if the plan is for Trey Young to be on this team for the next couple of years, they got to get another guy. That's just the reality.
And that's the thing. I have to get Glenn in here. Glenn, do you want to talk now or in like 60 seconds?
Oh, no, you go. You go.
All right.
People need to
Well,
hear from you more,
and that's
Kevin.
the thing.
So,
I don't even. Tyler's right about sort of the two guys and the Hawks needing another guy. The thing about it is, and maybe I'll get to it in a minute. Let me set the stage for a second here because like the Hawks had exit interviews Saturday, and it's sort of awkward that the Hawks made Landry Fields do exit interview day. Like the players were meeting with the media, but they were also meeting with Landry in the back. So like when the players were talking with us, they're talking about their meeting that they just had with Landry Fields or the meeting that they were just about to have with Landry Fields. So we started at like 8:45 interviewing players as they left for the year. Probably go to like 12:45 talking to each one of the players, kind of do a couple, wait a little bit, do a couple, wait a little bit. Then I think we got Quinn at like 1:30-ish. And then there was this very long wait. And the only person left to come was like Landry Fields, and he came and did his at like 3 o'clock. It was a bizarrely long wait Saturday for the Landry to come meet with the media. And he did it. He did it graciously. There was no signs of anything, but there was this very bizarrely long wait. And again, like it's kind of weird that they would have had Landry sort of making summer plans with the players when he wasn't going to be around. But the one question that I asked Landry about when Landry spoke, I was, a question about the fact that the window is now. Like they're not going to be able to make moves based on flexibility next summer. Whatever they're going to do in terms of getting a guy, they have to do now this summer. And so, I asked him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, this is the window." And evidently the Hawks knew that the Hawks know the same thing. Ownership knows the same thing. That the time for whatever big move they're going to make is right now. And, I guess they want somebody else making it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I the both first of all, Pascal Siakam, you had to have intel whether he was going to sign an extension with you or not. If he wasn't going to do that, you don't make that trade period. So none of us know if that conversation was had, if that clarification was manifested or not. We don't know, but that's a real thing. I'm not. That's not me saying that Tyler's not right to be critical of, or to call out the fact that this front office hasn't pulled off a significant move. I think Dyson is a quasi significant move. I think that was a great trade, but that's not. Well, they're still very much lacking the player you need to put next to Trey offensively. And then the Ingram deals, like we talked about it heading up the deadline when there were those rumors, and I think where we landed generally was if the price is right kind of thing. But he's had a tough injury history, and I think that makes you think, really think about that. But for me, I do think this summer is it. This is their I don't know. I don't want to say their last. I mean, I don't want to say it's their last chance, but it's the best opportunity they've had in 2 or 3 years to go make a significant move. And at the risk of repeating myself, I just think they want someone who has done it before, you know, and I think that's what it comes down to. Because Trey has been patient. Trey was a great sport this year, leading the
Yep.
young guys, letting them get their experience and the reps and all those sorts of things. But they have to do right by him, in my view, and that takes someone who really has experience and has the skill to guide big deals, big multi-team deals, if that's what it takes, to fruition. And it's fair to say that's something Landry's never done.
And
And,
there's a deal to be made with Trey too. Like this is the summer for his extension. Um, I'm not sure, is it going to be the absolute full max? Is there wiggle room in between? We've done this before with Al Horford. Like, how worried are you about the end of that deal if he gets a 5-year extension? Like, they've got to figure out what the value on that is going to be, and whatever option they come to agree on. If it's not the absolute full max, you just go sign and take whatever you want, Trey. Like, then you got to negotiate with Trey at that point, and that's going to be a tough negotiation.
yeah, and like I don't know, I want to put the Trey discussion to the side a bit because like I don't know what his I don't know what his market is for other teams, but for the Hawks, like it's just again, like we saw it in these playing tournaments, like nobody else can do anything on offense if Trey's not, you know, running the show. And so, like, if Kobe Buffkin had been healthy these last couple of years, at least he has the physical talent to be a starting point guard in this league. But that's it. Like, that's the only real shot creator on the team. You know, if you look at it in a certain way. So it'd be an interesting. Like Trey Summer's going to be interesting, but Glenn, I just that add to your point about Pascal Siakam, you didn't know if he was going to sign or not. That's enough. That to me, that's like a poor reflection on Fields not being able to sell players on the vision of the team, like players outside the org. You can sell. It's easy to sell the guys you draft. It's easy to sell the guys already in the locker room. What we're trying to do here. That's not also not difficult to me. Like you got to be able to sell your vision to free agents, and I think I feel like the Hawks. feel there's somebody who could do that better than what Landry is doing right now. So that's really just a bow. But like yeah, the trade one is interesting. I think it depends on who they get as an as their other star. Like if they can convince Trey to take the Jalen Brunson deal, I mean, of course, but you got to be able to sell Trey of like, hey, can you take this deal so we can go after, Zion? Like, I'm gonna keep bringing Zion's name up because he's probably the most talked about guy who's somewhat available, depending on what the Pelicans are trying to do this offseason. So, like, if you're trying to be like, hey Trey, we want to build a sustainable winner with Zion, can you take less so that we can fit Zion into our books a little easier, so then we can sign the supporting pieces that we're going to need around you to create a true title contender? Because you just got to be one of those things where you just got to be honest. Like Trey, you're brilliant, and you probably do. You're worth the max to us. But like to build a contender, we got to spread the money out. Like that's just how teams do it in today's NBA. So um, again, that's just another sign of Fields' lack of experience. Just you know experience in this role as the lead exec was probably a detriment in trying to sell that even to Trey, to me.
I think one thing that's interesting to watch going forward is like keeping a tally of who are the voices in the room that are still there. Like, okay, Landry Fields is gone. Like, there were certainly other significant voices in the room. Quinn seems like he's, still a powerful voice in the room. Like, when Landry was asked about Quinn Snyder at exit interviews, it was basically the answer was, yeah, um, you know, the whole organization is still completely behind Quinn. Um, I think that's probably true. So I think Quinn is still around. Kyle Korver is the assistant GM. Like, I don't know. There was one report that the Hawks were interested in Elton Brand. Like, I would imagine that if they're going after Elton Brand, then maybe Kyle is still, one of the voices in the room, but we'll have to see. Chris Grant, like he had connections with Landry Fields before he got here. Like, is Chris Grant still going to be here? And obviously Ansi is the GM now. So he's still, obviously one of the voices in the room, but it's going to be interesting to see, like, when you have that big of a group making decisions, like how it shakes out from here. Uh, do you want to talk at all about the Heat game?
No.
Or is that small potatoes now?
I mean, it was just, um, Hawks did a great job battling back like they've done so many times this year. But, I feel like there's someone could pull a string on my back and then we say, you fall way behind, you use all your energy to get back even in the game, and then you don't have anything left at the end. He made all their it felt like he made all their shots in overtime, and the Hawks missed all their shots in overtime. Um, and that's how it goes when you dig a hole. So for me, I felt conflicted in terms of like, did I want them to win? I was part of it was like, is someone just going to get hurt in the next round? And is it some pointless outcome? So
I
let's
mean, you
just
already played the Magic.
yeah, I know, but um, so I mean, I am proud of the mental toughness the team had. I think they should be proud of it. They fought and they competed. But I did a 30-minute retrospective I posted to my Patreon, and what I talked about was a lot of good stuff from this year, but there are some big steps they have to take to get to the next level. The other thread that I think that I talked about there is that East is kind of wide open. Like it's pretty wide open. Like uh, how can Cleveland repeat what they did this year? Right. That's the thing we'll find out next year. Boston, that team's getting older. You know, and they're still in their window, but they and Brad Stevens is really good at his job, so he'll probably find a solution of some sorts. But outside of those two teams, there's like the teams that make the smart moves this summer have a real chance to kind of put themselves right up in that next tier. And that kind of circles back to why I think, maybe Tony and the team smartly want someone who can really navigate big moves, because it's not like in the West where like you got to fight and claw to get even like from 7 to 3. It's all compact, but
Yeah.
in the East, it's like the team that makes one or two smart moves this offseason can really leapfrog a bunch of teams, and that opportunity is right there. Um, and I think that the Hawks have to capitalize on that.
What did you think of the Heat game, Tyler?
It's similar to the Magic in that at a certain point, you really wish the Hawks had a physical. I really wish Jalen Johnson was playing. Like, I mean, at the highest levels against good teams, it really hurts not having Jalen Johnson out there to cover up a lot of the flaws on the defensive side of the floor and to shore up your offense. Because, like, if we're being honest, it was really just Trey and Nyeka and like
That's right.
Karis LeVert and George Niang. Like, literally, those were the four guys who could do anything on the offensive side of the floor. Everybody else was, Dyson. I thought against the Heat was a little bit better, but he was. I felt like he was a little too gun shy to just shoot open contested 3 points, not open ones. Like he'll shoot an open one, yeah, if he has time. But like contested, semi-contested threes, the type of threes you have to take uh, in the pressure cooker of the playoffs. Like he hasn't taken them all season, and I think that unwillingness showed itself to his detriment on the offensive end. Though defensively, that third quarter against Miami, like for as good as Trey Young was in that third, like Dyson was just as good defensively. That was
He was
that
amazing.
was
He wouldn't let
unreal.
Tyler Hero catch the ball.
That was unreal, and it's unfortunate again if you have Jalen or if Reese Shea was a more mature player, you could have spelled Dyson for a bit longer so that he didn't have the energy to close the fourth quarter with that same level of intensity. You know, um, they got to get, this team's got to get deeper. They got to get more depth. They got to get more physical talent. But that was, some downsides. And also, like, really impressed with Mo Gay through these two games. Um, hard not to be impressed by, his growth as a player. And I mean, Onyeka, like, it, I'm frustrated for him because I feel like Onyeka Okongwu could have been at this stage of his career 2 years ago. You know, like I don't think he's doing. Yeah, the 3 point shooting aside, like that's great that he was making jumpers, but like everything he was doing on defensive end, offensively, moving the ball around, trying to facilitate, be that hub player, creating offense for himself a little bit. Like a lot of that he could have done 2 years ago if he was emboldened to do so instead of splitting time with Clint Capella. So like that's something where I'm frustrated organizationally that they waited till the and this is something another Fields detriment. They wait till like they have to make a decision to make a decision. You know,
And
they
if you make
waited
the
till
decision earlier, like you can line up the power forward that you want earlier too, because it's like the power forward you
exactly.
want next to Capella is different than the power forward you want next to a Congo. When you wait that long on the decision, now you're a little bit behind in terms of like matching, get the right backup power forward. Like you don't have that now.
Yeah, so it's just like beyond just a combo decision. There was just a lot of decisions, even the Dejounte Murray trade decision where it dragged. Like they were going to trade him at the deadline, then they decided not to. It ended up working out for them, but like there was if the Pelicans didn't over like if the Pelicans didn't have their issues ownership wise and salary paying the tax wise, like the Hawks could have been in real trouble of not getting anything of value for DeJounte Murray. Like that was a real risk. They got really lucky that one Murray had a career year last year, particularly when Trey got hurt and he kind of restored his value. They got really lucky there because if Murray went into a shooting slump, like it could have been really bad for them. So like I just think organizationally they need more proactive decision makers. Like they gotta find these weak points sooner because you're not going to be able, like if the goal is to just win 48 to 52 games, then what Fields is doing is fine. But in a league where the OKC Thunder exist, uh, to me, you gotta be smarter. You gotta be more bold. You gotta take more risk. And I think that's my biggest take. Where Fields played it a little too safe, and I think they let some opportunities slip by to really elevate this team. But we'll see what they do this offseason uh, concerning that. But I thought back to the Heat game, like they played their butts off. I had no complaints with. I thought Quinn did a better job with his rotations. Like he was a lot tighter, understood the moment that it was a must-win game or we're going home. So no complaints with how they played. It's just the players they had just weren't up to the level.
Yeah, they needed one more player. It it bothered me a little bit that Niang didn't start overtime. Just because they
Yeah.
were getting here's the thing, like Terrence Mann played like 35 minutes and I think he took 3 shots like on
Yep.
offense. When he would get the ball on offense, he was just like, okay, where's Karras? I want to do a handoff with Karras. And it's like if that's all you can contribute on offense, like the Niang has to be in there for offense or Mo has to be in there for defense. Like that wasn't Mo's greatest game, but like if all you can do on offense is a handoff, like we got to do something different.
Yes. Yes. That's fair. Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I thought the team did well. Like, I think Riza Shea and Daniels both just the last couple of weeks, like they had long summers, and I think that manifested itself here late. And they fought. It was a good fight, but came up short. But now a very, very interesting summer. Well, I appreciate you jumping in with helping me handle this pod on short notice and with big news. I guess it's time to say goodnight, Bob.
Good night, Bob.